Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I'm here today with the one and only Cathy Savage. Cathy Savage is an internationally recognized digital fitness and brand media strategist who is located in Boston. She has been featured on MTV, ABC News, and Fox News. She has been a member of the advisory panel and contributor for Oxygen Magazine and Strong Magazine. Since the early 1990s, Cathy has been the pioneer in successful coaching and consulting for women from all over the world. Her coaching programs were the first and most prominent all-inclusive digital global training program of its kind. Cathy has coached and mentored celebrities, athletes, television personalities, and C-suite executives for lifestyle changes, creative brand ideation, and business strategies as well. She has spoken on various stages around the world as an expert in her profession, from small groups to audiences over 15,000. As a Boston College graduate, Cathy has leveraged her education and experience of building a wellness branding empire to develop into a women's media agency where she coaches women on personal branding and how to communicate effectively. And she is my mentor. She was my mentor in fitness, one of the reasons why I've been so successful. And also in business, she pivoted, and what a perfect fit. She's ever evolving. And when you do her coaching, it's like everything she touches turns to gold. So you will too. You will evolve. You will do things you never dreamed possible when Mama Savage pours her belief into you. Today's episode was power packed. We talked about how to own the front row in our lives as women, how to stop asking permission and showing up as that person that does the things and has the things that you want to achieve, and so much more. This was all encompassing. How to stop comparing ourselves. We're already worthy. We're already lean enough. How lean do you need to be? So good today. And I just want to, I'm leaving room because I want to read to you one of my favorite things that she puts out every year. And this is your annual reminder from Mama Savage. My call to action after a morning chat with coaching staff. I feel that I need to speak out. We were reviewing some of our new members and what their regimens for training and nutrition were prior to coming to our team. And I must say, as a coach and a woman, that I am horrified. There are trainers who actually prescribe things that are so dangerous. Ladies, you do not have to join my team, but you should love yourself enough to listen. So let me tell you straight up, and that's how she does everything. Number one, doing cardio for more than an hour a day for months on end will destroy everything you are working so hard for. You will not only lose muscle, but you will risk serious harm to things like your adrenals, metabolism, etc. Get off the Jane Fonda bandwagon and lift weights. Number two, fat burners should be illegal, but they aren't. If your trainer has you on them, that means your program isn't working. Your body should burn fat naturally. It can also mean that your trainer doesn't know how to get the fat off you naturally. Find someone who can get it off of you without compromising your health. Number three, eliminating food groups is ignorant. To take away your fruit for weeks means your trainer doesn't know how to fuel your body correctly, so instead they will deprive you. It doesn't work as your body goes into survival mode and you suffer. It might not be the same as like if you're doing a show and you cut them the week or two before. or maybe you're on a vacation and you just do it for a short time, but for weeks on end, I completely agree there. And then my favorite, number 4, how lean do you really need to be? Can you become leaner than my girls? She says, sure you can, but that could compromise your health in the long term. Keeping all food groups in, unless there is a food intolerance or allergy, is 100% possible to compete, do a photo shoot, or just rock a bikini on the beach. Number 5, if you eat the same thing every day, your body will stop reacting. Number 6, do you have good fat? Oil every day, flaxseed, udos. I said oil, not nuts. Oil, do you? If it isn't on your plan, put it in ASAP. Number 7, if you are having crying fits, lashing out like an episode of Bridezilla, or your hair is falling out, then you need to stop what you are doing. Getting into optimal shape is joyful, not a hardship. Think about what you are doing. The term extreme means too much. Ponder that, Cathy Savage. We also talked about what we are going after when we get extreme or we do too much of anything. We should examine that. What is it stemming back to? What is it we're really looking for? And are we going to get it from what we're doing? There's so much in this episode. So you just got to tune in, because I've known Cathy for years, and she was answering my questions before I even asked them. And that's just like a best friend, when you have a friend that knows your thoughts before you speak them. So I hope you guys enjoy this as much as I enjoyed having Cathy on. I am so excited to have the one and only Cathy Savage on the Sisterhood of Sweat today.
Oh, it's so good to be here.
Oh my gosh. We go so far back. You don't know this, but when I was at Miss Fitness USA, all of the people almost on the judging panel had people that they were either training, choreographing, how do I say, and then they're the judges every year for years upon years. And so I wanted to get better. And I was like, I know I'm bucking the system here to go with an outsider, but I'd heard so much good about you. And I was like, I'm not using one of the judges that I've been using that's on the panel. And so guess what? I improved. I got better and better and better. And it didn't hurt my scores at all. But you know, women can have that fear that they've got to play the game. They got to play the game right.
Right.
And how do you help? Well, first of all, I just got to commend you that you really helped me in so many ways. That was just the beginning. But how do you help women to stop standing back in fear for the sake of going somewhere?
Yeah, well, thank you. And thank you for those words. You know, every person is different. Every client is different, and every client comes to me with a different story. And I'll hashtag that word story, because all too often, the reason why women stay back in the middle of the theater or the back of the theater, the back row, is because someone told them a story, or they fabricated a story that they weren't enough. They didn't have the right look. They didn't have the right education, you name it. And as little girls, we are kind of told this by a friend, a student, a fellow student, a teacher, sometimes your parents. It's always a story that is being told to you that you then refabricate and make it true. And so we all come with a different story. My job is to unpack that story by making you so darn sick of it that you're ready to release it. And that's a process of coaching, but that really is the mechanics behind how we release the story of not being worthy enough to be in that front row. Because if you can't be the leading lady in your own life, then what are you doing? So I feel like that is my job, to help you find your voice, be the leading lady in all aspects of life.
Well, you have been behind so many people, Lori Harder, Lindsay Messina. I could just keep going down the list of people that everyone would recognize on the cover of magazines upon magazines. And so you have a secret sauce. How do you bring out a person's best so that it shines forth? Like, is it working on their value?
It is. It's working on their personal brand, because everybody has one. It's working on what makes them so different. And no one is the same. So someone may say, oh, I want to be the next fill in the blank. Well, there is no next fill in the blank. It's you. So something I'm really good at, and maybe it's my marketing expertise and my degree and all my education and experience, is to really find what makes a girl tick, what makes her so unique and special that if there's a lineup, she stands out. And, the way to do that is to really dig deep into somebody's qualities, their energy, their essence. And if you look at, the roster of people that you described and so many more, none of them are the same, but there is a little bit of quality that is similar. And it's that likability. And I think surrounding women with fellow women that really want the same for them, it's, we call it the standard. And that standard is sisterhood in its real definition, not just a word. And through that comes an essence and an aura that is tangible to some people, but to me, it's palpable. So I can look at you and immediately think of all the beautiful qualities, Linda, that you possess. And so I'm going to promote every single quality that you have. And I'm just the stage woman. I'm Steven Spielberg behind the camera. I'm Greta Gerwig, the director of Barbie. You're Barbie, I'm Greta. It's a relationship. It's a collaboration. So I look at all the women that I work with in every capacity, whether it's business and branding and fitness and whatever it is. And I look at that as, I'm the director, I'm behind the scenes, I'm that stage mother pushing you, quite literally with some of you, into all the opportunities that are awaiting you. It's just my
And
role.
it's so true. And when you step into your own role as a woman, you don't have to worry about filling anyone else's shoes. Because when you are on the stage and you're my age, when I started, I was 40, and you're standing next to women, because back for many, many years, it was always just 18 years on up and you're there.
Right.
You might be next to someone that just won collegiate cheerleading competitions, or somebody that was in Circus Olay, or
Yeah.
a silver
Literally.
medalist in the Olympics. I'm just naming real things here.
Yeah,
that
real
happened.
people.
Real people. Well, I remember one year, I think it was when Eka, yeah, she
Yeah.
came, and she was at Miss Fitness USA, and I turned to Karen Elliott and I was like, who is a winner of many championships. I
Yes.
said, it looks like we just went to a whole nother level,
Uh-huh.
because she could do the hula hoop, the rope, stick
Oh
her
my
foot back
goodness.
over,
It
her
was
head. And
crazy. I mean, are you aware that there was several shows, but I remember one sitting in the audience like I do, screaming my lungs out. And I looked at the lineup and I looked at people on stage, your fellow sisters, and I would say, oh my God, she trained with Bella Caroli. Oh my God, she was in Cirque du Soleil. Oh my God, like the list went on and on and on. And a lot of times it was some random girl on our team that didn't come from all those genres win, because
right.
But what I love so much is that all of you know how to bring whatever your skill set is forward, and you don't compare, because how can you compare all the things I just said? You just can't. So the idea is to bring whatever your genius is to the front line. And the people that appreciate you and love you and can relate to you, they'll come to you, they'll be attracted to your brand. And so for me, it was never who's the best. It was really just the pick of the day, because all of you had and still have massive talent in whatever you're doing. So you can't worry about what someone else is doing. What you can focus on is really tapping into your zone of genius. What makes you so unique that you are going to stand out in a charismatic way? And we all have that. That's the beauty of it.
And really just being the most you is the secret, isn't it? Because if you are trying to be ECAT, unless you've trained like ECAT, you're not going to be ECAT. And the same for Karen Elliott, who was a cheerleader for years, or Tiffany Yee, or any of the people that have been in the competitive realm. But this also bleeds over into brands too, is showing up authentically, not trying to be a carbon copy of everyone else, right?
Oh, 100%. And I think that's what I love so much about diving into people's personal brands and creating something that is so deep within them that no one else can replicate. That is really the true marking of someone who's going to stand out, someone who's going to be disruptive. And I don't mean disruptive in a bad way, I mean disruptive in a good way, and someone who's very, very unique. It actually is the textbook definition of building something exceptional in the business world. You want to stand out. You don't want to be like the person next to you. It's why I can be such good friends with people who do what I do, because they do it differently than I do. There is no competition, especially when you are a category of one. And that's what I want each and every one of my clients to be as well.
One thing I have to say is your book could be on the same topic. You might be like, oh, I've seen this book 100 times made over, but you're going to be like, just like fitness businesses, people could be like, there's so many of them, why would I ever open one?
Right.
But you're going to bring such a different flavor. It isn't going to seem the same, even when it's the same topic. And that's what I learned when I was starting out writing books, and through opening my gym and expanding now 3 times.
You're absolutely right. I mean, if you think about it, if you see a gym on the corner and you've always wanted to open up a gym, would that detract you from doing it? No. But to be really specific and successful, you want to do things in a very unique way that nobody else does. And when I started my company and we had this group of women, it was very clear. Now, granted, there wasn't anyone else doing it like us, but even when we did start seeing people kind of try to replicate us, we stood our ground and we kept the unique quality that made us who we were. And then, when I started out doing this, and all there was a bunch of male trainers, and I say trainers that way, we said to ourselves as a group, as a collective, 30 years prior, we said, we are going to be the team of women that put health first over competition. We're going to be the prettiest on stage. We're going to be the healthiest on stage. We're not going to eliminate food groups, and we're going to be really nice to everybody backstage. That's what made us unique. All of those things disrupted the norm of what everybody else tried to be in our industry. We went against the grain simply just by maintaining our values and our moral compass. And that's what I mean by the standard. We had a standard, and everybody needs that in their business and their brand, all of it.
Yeah, I really love the fact that you brought a standard to the game,
I do
because
too.
I think that is so important in a realm where we're wearing tiny little bikinis, and it
Yeah.
could go so awry. And having a standard also sets you apart from everyone else. And most people do want to have standards. And
Yeah.
so I think setting the bar and setting those standards is so key. One of the things I really like, and I am totally reading this whole thing off, but not right now, but at the beginning of the show, where you have to repeat this almost every year. But you say my annual, you have to repeat what people really need to hear about
Mhm.
health and fitness, because there's so many people out there that are doing all these quick fixes, all these extreme things, and wanting you to take fat burners and just the list, waist trainers, the list goes on and on and on. And I
Mhm.
loved that you were a sound of reason in a sea of chaos, I think.
Yep.
And one of the biggest things, I was looking at your page today, I liked it that you said, well, how lean do you need to be? Like,
Right.
that is a question I think people think, if I'm the leanest on the stage, or if I'm the this, the that, but it really was not always the leanest person that won. And also, you go into depth about your hormones, being healthy afterwards. Speak to that a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there is so much good in the health and wellness industry. There's so much good, but there is also so much misinformation, misguidance, and ignorance, quite frankly. And when you are a professional and you are a ambassador of the industry, like you are, it really makes you angry and you have to stand out. For me, it's just so common sense. Fat burners should be illegal. Your body knows how to naturally burn fat on its own. So if I'm going to say I work with natural athletes, why would I ever give them fat burners? To me, they should be illegal because everything should be done on its own. So that's just one example of what people need to just kind of use their common sense. And that's what I always ask of people, to love yourself enough to ask questions before you make these ridiculous decisions, because we're all grown women. You can't really blame the trainer when you're the one who could have said, no, I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to leave you because I don't want to be extreme. I don't want to be these things. I just want women to be more alert about what goes into their body and how they can take care of themselves long after their goal is met. And you may remember, I've always said to the young ones, I want you to have children. I don't want you to be a hormonal mess. I want you to think of the long game, not the $40 trophy that you win on Saturday. You go back to work on Monday. No one even knows what you did. It's not
Yeah,
for
because
you.
when you
It's
try
not
to
worth.
explain it to somebody, pretty soon you just see they deer in the headlights. It kind of went south. They don't know what you're
It.
talking about.
Right. And I would have to be very abrasive and I call it very Belichick-y, meaning Bill Belichick, a football coach. I would have to really be aggressive in that approach because I just didn't want them going down that road. It meant a lot to me for the long game. It makes me so happy when I see, all these years later, these women who did listen and are having babies and doing all these wonderful things with their businesses because they listened. So sometimes I have to repeat a lot of the stronger messages, like you said, and I'll post it. And I may have written it maybe 15 years ago, but it still rings true for the things that women are dealing with today, just like they were 15 years ago. That temptation to look good and to be perfect. And, it's even worse now for women with role models, television role models, aspiring to be someone of fame. There's a lot for women to really navigate through. And I just want women to make really good decisions and put their health first.
And I love that you said that. And in life in general, again, you are more than just your leanness. You're a total package, and you're your essence, the essence of you that nobody else can be. So again, it's when we get this in our mind that we have to be this perfect size 2 celebrity with perfect hair, perfect, just perfect everything. We're
Yeah,
missing people too doing that.
right. And that leanness began with men who were bodybuilders. Our sport of competitive fitness and figure and any physicality sport, it started from bodybuilding. So you've got to understand that the big voices of saying, hey, I can get you lean, that originates from there. Well, when you're a bodybuilder, yeah, you have to be lean. Um, when you're a competitor in any type of physicality like figure and bikini and fitness, you need to look attractive. So when you get lean, so does your face. And I remember Robert Kennedy, God bless him, publisher, founder of Oxygen magazine, he used to always say, Cathy, why are girls so much prettier than everybody else? And I always used to say, because I don't eliminate food groups. They have a lot of good fat oil. And he used to laugh. He used to be like, no, that's not it. I'm like, yes, it is. They are healthy. And as a result, they're stress-free because they're not starving themselves. So they're naturally in shape and they're beautiful because they're celebrating their health. They feel amazing on stage, and that charisma and that natural beauty shines through because they're not stressed out of their minds because they've starved themselves and haven't had fruit for 6 months. That's everybody else in our sport, but never us. And that's the difference.
They ruin their metabolisms,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
then you have the adrenal problems, you have the um, carbohydrate, like the insulin resistance,
Yep.
because you cut out whole food groups. And the biggest thing that I feel like after having a break was because of my injuries, I got my metabolism back.
Mm-hmm.
Now I could eat plenty of food
Yeah.
and still get where I want to go and keep my weight happy all year round. And it wasn't ever like any major extremes. And two, I think the biggest thing is we think that we're going to arrive at this perfect place where everything is perfect. And when you recognize that you were created perfect, you're already worthy, that's when things really start coming into your life that you've always wanted, because you're already in that belief of you are worthy, and you already decided to choose you instead of pick me, pick me.
Gosh. Not only are we worthy, we're masterpieces. We really are. Every single one of us. We are just absolute gifts. And when you really see that and know it and believe it, and that's my job to remind you of that, you can do anything. And there is no pick me because you're so assured of who you are. And you can see that a mile away from social media to shows, anywhere people show up. You can see who is really knowing and sure of themselves. And to me, there's nothing more attractive than that, than a woman who knows exactly who she is. And people will always say to me, Cathy, how do you speak so directly and confidently? Did you have to learn that? And I always say the same thing because I know who I am. I know who I'm not, but I really know who I am. So I want women to hear that and just say, who am I? I'm a good person. I'm this, I'm that. You might have to go through that and remind yourself of what a gift you are. And that's, again, my job to remind you. But unfortunately, we get lost in stories or someone telling us, you're not good enough for this, or why would you ever want to do something like that? When you know who you are, statements like that just bounce off. People have said that to me, like, oh, you're so young, you're older. What are you doing on TikTok? Doing the same thing you're doing, honey. Doesn't matter how old I am. So that's just, I know who I am. I do what I like. I don't do what I don't like. And again, it's that all knowing that makes you so attractive. So when you go on stage or you're speaking, and you've done speaking on stage as well, when you know who you are and why you're supposed to be there, people can't take their eyes off of you. And everybody has that within them. They do. It's not just saved for a few people. Everybody has that capability within them.
And for me, it was just, I've gotten up from my injuries. I am so excited to be here. I'm
Yeah.
60, and I was
Right.
just celebrating that, and so happy to just to be doing it, to be 60, all of
Mhm.
those things. And I think that was my message of inspiration. I was like, I'm here to inspire people. And if I would have hung it up because I'm, well, now 61, a certain age, I wouldn't have reached most of my wildest dreams. And so I don't believe because the clock is ticking, you know, that we should stop because we're a certain age. So I think you got to press and lean in, because that's when your biggest dreams are going to come true.
Oh, you're so right. I think of my father-in-law. My father-in-law, God rest his soul, he literally worked and didn't need to, but worked until he passed away. He owned commercial real estate, and he was in his late 80s, and he would say, next year, I think what I'm going to do is, like, without any any fear of his age holding him back. And I always look at that and say, longevity is really overtaking the fitness world, the wellness world, any type of industry. It's all about longevity now. People who are 60 are acting like 40, and they feel like they're 40, and 40-year-olds are acting like 30-year-olds. And this is a very exciting time. And you are really exemplary with the longevity marketplace. The longevity marketplace, the longevity industry is going to be a multi-trillion-dollar industry, surpassing the fitness industry. Why? Because people want to live longer. They're feeling better. We have more assets to help us stay young, or stay youthful, I should say. And that is the most attractive thing in the world. It's not about trying to reinvent yourself physically. I'm not talking about plastic surgery. I'm not talking about any of that stuff. That's just a mask. What I'm talking about is your essence. What you just described of saying, yeah, I'm 60, I'm going to compete. Oh, and let me think, what shows am I going to do next year? That's what I'm talking about. That is such an exemplary role model quality that you have. Being a role model and saying, I feel amazing. Why would I stop doing what I'm doing because I'm a certain age? And that's that whole overarching theme of longevity, that we can do and be anything we want at any age. You see people starting businesses at 60. And it's not an abnormal thing right now. It's kind of the norm. People are doing more now
Right.
than they ever did, and they love it.
And I'm just getting going. I mean, I was raising kids from the point of 19 to like 54. So
Oh,
might have been
yeah.
even a little more than that, right? And
My
so
gosh,
that's,
women in their second act. I have
yeah.
a lot of clients who are in their we call it the second act. They're 45, 50 and over, some well into their late 60s, who are starting new things, new endeavors, just like you had just beautifully described. And I'm here for it. I've got a front row seat, and I'm eating the popcorn, cheering for everybody. This is our time. It's really, really exciting.
So how can women be in the front row of their lives?
Well, they have to not ask for permission. They need to proclaim and declare that they are going to be in the front row. You can't just say, I'm going to be in the front row, but you can sure as heck declare it and move in a way where you are all knowing and confident of who you are. Now, of course, there's steps to do that. And if you're someone who's kind of in the back row right now and you're like, gosh, there's got to be more. If I had a dime for every time I heard that every day, I'd have a lot of dimes. But there are certain things to do. And I always have people tap into their zones of genius and their zones of excellence. What do you do that's really, really good? That's your zone of excellence. Make a list of all the things that you do, even your characteristics. And then your zone of competence, like what are you okay at? Your zone of incompetence, what are you terrible at? Make a list. And then finally, that zone of genius that you do in such a way that's unique and different than the way other people do it. So you can, for example, you have a fitness studio, Linda. There's probably 3 fitness studios within a certain amount of mile radius with you. But what do you do that's so different than everybody else? And from a business standpoint, I always go through the zones with people because the zone of genius is how you do get into the front row from a business perspective. You're so unique that people can't take their eyes off of you. That's from a business perspective. So your business, your company, your brand, it gets noticed because you do things in such a way that allows you to be in the front row. And then from a personal perspective, it's the same thing. It's really knowing who you are and running with it and not worrying about what someone from high school is saying about you. They're mosquitoes. They're just gonna fly away. So that's something that women have to really commit to changing. Because a lot of times I'll hear that, well, I don't want people to think, fill in the blank. And when people say that to me, I lose interest. I lose interest in them because they're not doing it for themselves. They're not doing it the right way because they're so worried about what other people are going to think. And that's a process to really remind women that you have one life and these people that you're worried about, they're not paying your bills. And I've seen so many people retract and recoil because of that, for their fear of wanting to not overstep their boundaries. Well, I say overstep your boundaries.
You're not going to get anywhere in life not getting out of that box and
I think it was
worrying
Lisa
about what
Nichols.
everyone thinks.
Right. Lisa Nichols is the one who said, don't ask for permission, give notice. And
Ooh, I love it.
love that. Isn't that great?
To give notice.
Oh, yeah. And I think I kind of acted that way around you guys so that you would be imprinted with that strong alpha personality, that you need to really stand on your own. You need to be able to stand on your own. And you need to give notice, as Lisa Nichols says, and claim your spot. It's as easy as that. It's like up, down, hot, cold, yes, no, black, white. We get lost in the gray, but really things are black and white. You can choose to be in the front row and have a really great work ethic and be relentless in the goal that you achieve, that you set out for yourself, or you can sit in the back row and play it safe. It's your choice.
Yeah, not playing it safe and not staying in your comfort zone and going after those dreams that you have instead of worrying about what other people are going to think, because those other people really don't think about you as much as you think they do.
People are so worried about themselves that they're not even I always say this, when people will say, oh, backstage, I don't want anyone looking at me. And I always say, nobody's looking at you, honey. They're so worried about themselves that they're not even thinking about you. And it's the same in business. People really aren't judging you. They're worried about their own stuff. But I also want to remind women that when you set out that way and cut yourself down, you're doing a disservice, because something that you can provide to someone else could really save them or change the game. Like you said, imagine if you weren't assertive with opening a studio. How many lives have you changed? How much impact have you made? But if you stay in a state of fear, and it's all about you, isn't it? But when you say, I'm going to help people get into the best shape of their lives, now that's a mission and you're going to do it. And, it's funny, when I was going to build my business, I remember a lot of people who were really good people said, you had a great corporate job. You probably shouldn't do it. I don't know, having your own business, that's a lot. It was constantly that, but no one could tell me otherwise because I was on a mission to make it happen. And I've never really worried about what other people say about me because I've been so sure of what I want to do, whether I'm like a mom or a business owner, it doesn't matter. I've always taken that approach. And I just wish more women would be that confident.
And the more you push past the naysayers, the more sure you will become of what you're doing,
Mhm.
because you'll see it. It's when we're standing back in fear that we can't move forward in faith, because we're just focusing on what we're afraid of
Right.
instead of what's on the other side of that. That what would it look like if you opened that business and you created that brand just like you envisioned it? How many people's lives are going to be touched? Well, I'd rather be on the side of touching lives than worrying about what Susie Q thinks.
Oh my God. You know, I always say, I love when people doubt me because it gives me so much more fuel for my fire. It's like lighting a match because I want to show people what can be done so that the next person who had all the doubts thrown upon them can see what it did for me. I used it as jet fuel and it has worked every time. There has never been an exception where someone doubted me or someone did something or done me wrong, as they say, and it's always worked out. It's almost like you kind of sometimes need that
It gives you
to
the
up
fuel.
level, right? To up
Yes.
level from where you were, because you can get really comfortable until someone tries to mess you up or or someone doubts you to go to the next level. So I welcome that because that really is the jet fuel that you need to rise above.
I love that. It is fuel. Definitely. Definitely. And you were talking about your father-in-law, work, 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 and so many people fall in this category. And I know it doesn't matter what I've been doing throughout my life. I'm always following purpose, passion. Who does it help? And I've had a few jobs I didn't like that were miserable. I didn't stay there. And so I want to speak to that a little bit, because I think when you're in your zone of genius, you could do that all day long and you don't suffer from burnout and exhaustion and heart attacks and all of these things for the most part. So there's something to be said about not waiting for your life to almost be over to start living out your dreams and following your zone of genius.
Oh, such a great commentary. You know what I love about young people right now? They're not thinking the way we did. There are kids, my son is one of them, he's a senior in college. And what I love so much about that generation is they're coming out of school saying, yeah, I'm probably going to work in corporate for maybe a year or two, but then I'm going to venture out on my own. Back in the day, the narrative was, I'm going to work, corporate for 10, 20, 30 years, and then maybe venture out on my own. And people now, this generation, this young generation, they want to live life to the fullest. So they don't want to wait. And I love that. But you are so right. There are so many people, I have friends like this that actually they hate their jobs. They hate it. And I always say the same things. In fact, I'm on some boards at my alma mater. It's my college is where my kids both go to school. So it's kind of awesome. And I remember I was in a women's board meeting and we were talking about men and women in the corporate world. And there was a woman that stood up. She was probably like 30. And she started talking about how she is just looked upon in the fitness world, in the business world, and that she's not treated well, all the above. She was complaining. And I look over and I raise my hand and I go, well, why don't you just leave? And she looked at me like, are you kidding me? And she said, how could I leave my job? And I said, easy. You give your notice and you become a consultant and you build something extraordinary and you never look back. It was so obvious to me. But what I said to her, I may as well have been speaking Japanese. She was shocked that I said, why don't you just leave? Don't you want to be happy? So I think we're conditioned to think that we belong in a job that makes us miserable. and to just go along with the flow. And that's just not what life is about. And I wish more people would find that out faster. Luckily, the newer generations, they're already there.
Or a
And
relationship for that matter. Or yeah, right?
say that again.
Or a relationship for that matter. If it's not workable surface and you're miserable, because I think what we don't know is the unknown. And so people also, we've been talking about fear. Not only do they fear what people think, but they also fear the devil they don't know versus the devil they do know. They fear the unknown, but I would venture to guess that if you're in something that is just sucking the life out of you and making you miserable, if you would jump out and just start going another direction and living your life, you're going to look back and say, why did I stay so long?
Yeah, people don't want to bet on themselves. And I bet on people every time. That really is the name of the game. They're not sure of themselves and they're not willing to risk. But what is the risk? And my dad used to always say to people, because he was such a great mentor to so many people, he used to say, what is the worst thing that can happen if this doesn't work out? And he said that to me when I wanted to leave corporate. I wasn't in corporate long, thank God, because I was miserable. And he said, what is the worst thing that can happen? And I remember saying, well, I could just go find another job in corporate. And he said, exactly. So go for it. Do it. I bet on you. And oftentimes people don't have people like that in their corner, which is why they don't risk. And that's our job as strong women, to encourage other people to really take the risk and bet on themselves. Because the worst case scenario is you can always go back and get another job if it doesn't work out. But bet on yourself. You only have one life. And in this world, the digital age, women can do everything. They can stay at home and take care of their kids and create million-dollar empires. We've never had it so easy and so efficient for us to do so. So, your happiness, your stress of hating your job, you've got to weigh the two and just say to yourself, how long do I want to be miserable? Or when can I find my happiness? So I always encourage women to bet on themselves.
And you don't need what you think you need, right?
Right.
You probably didn't have everything you have right now and you were happy and fine before.
Right.
And so I think too, take without risk, there's no reward. And at the end of the day, like today, creating things is so fun for your own brand, for your own business. I was creating leggings and I was going with all these different, this is to the conservative look, this is the more wild, this is for the person that just wants to look slim in their leggings. And I was playing around with it. And I have this board where everybody puts all their stars up every time they come. And so it's getting more and more. So I'm like, okay, we've given for the 150, we've given for the 300. What is for the 450 times somebody puts their gold star up?
I love it.
Coming up. And so it was so fun. I went all out. I went ahead and got the great box with the tissue paper and the ribbon and the great gift. It was personalized, and
Nice.
gave it to them, in front of other people. And so it was so fun recognizing someone that's coming to my brand,
Yeah.
branding it, having this whether their accountability board, just when you start doing something, you might think, oh, that's a stupid idea. But really, it's the stupid ideas that make the wheels turn. Like you think, oh, well, I don't know. Will people really get into that? Heck yeah, they're going to get into it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so fun thinking of all these things, and it just makes more wheels turn.
What you've described is why you really have not been burnt out, and neither have I. And, I hear people who have been in business 5 years, 10 years, I'm so burnt out, I got to do something else. Meanwhile, I've been coaching for over 35 years. I'm not burnt out because of things like you just described. It's always being creative and making it fun and reinventing and evolving into different genres. That's how you prevent burnout. People will say, oh my God, Cathy, you're still coaching? Yeah, and I love it. I don't need to. I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm still creating new programming. I'm creating new courses, new memberships. There's no stopping me because I love doing it. You're the same way. We talked about this, I think, a while ago. I think on one of our calls, we were talking about people retiring, and you and I were like, retire? Why would we ever do that? We love what we
Yeah, I
do.
really never have that desire. Now, my husband
No,
has that desire for me, but I don't have that desire to retire.
because you
Uh,
love what you do.
I do.
That's
And the
why.
more I do it, the more I do it full out, the more I want to do it. And I do feel like I could do it all day long. I enjoy it so much. So I want that for everyone listening. And I know that it's possible. And you, Cathy, are the wind behind so many women's wings.
Mm.
You are. And how do you get them to shift from where they currently are, where I think they don't recognize what they're capable of, or they'd be doing it right now, to being on covers, magazine covers, being on stages, being front and center, owning, having a brand that's making waves out there in the industry?
I've always said belief has a sound. You know it when you have it, and you know it when you don't have it. And if you asked any one of my clients who is doing the things that you just described, they would say that working with me, they found their voice because someone finally believed in them. And so I don't want to take credit for what they're doing, but you have to have someone in your life pouring belief into you. And I think that's the mark of a good mentor, a good coach, to really not be a cheerleader. It's different. To really get to know
Give you a
someone.
little savage slap now and then.
Yes, savage slap and mental toughness to just remind someone of their magnificence. And it isn't, you hear that and you might say, well, that's like being a cheerleader. And it's completely the different way, because there were times where I had to be very, very tough with my clients to remind them that they are holding themselves back and they're playing small, and it's time for them to elevate into another area. You know what you should be doing. You should have your own membership. You need a course. You need a podcast. This is what I do. This is why I love what I do. I can really look at someone and try to create a star from that person, not because I'm so good at it, but I can pull it out of someone, because everybody has star quality. And the ones who become stars, the ones who grace the covers, the ones who get to that level, it's a combination of someone believing in them and them accepting and releasing the stories that they hear in their head just like everybody else, but they have that resilience muscle to just say, nope, I'm going for it. And I mean, I could probably write a book someday about all of those stories, about making sure someone was seen in front of the publisher and making sure that we were connecting with, and networking with the right people. So there is a strategy, there is a business machine behind it. But at the end of the day, you could have all that. And if you don't believe in yourself, then it's not going to happen, because I can tell you that there are some amazing women that I've worked with who I did everything for on that end. But in the end, they didn't believe it enough. And you don't know who they are because they never took that chance on themselves. A coach can only do so much. And the
Right.
ones that make it are the ones that are coachable and say, I got this. I'm going to bet on myself. I'm going to do what you say. I'm not going to question it. But then there's the negotiators who don't believe in it and they try to do something else and it just doesn't work. And that makes me sad, because there's a lot of women who could have had that brand, those deals, all of it, but they just didn't believe in themselves enough. So really getting someone to that next level it's a It's a collaboration. It's having the right mentors that know how to pour strategic belief that's tangible, that's a process through professional coaching to the acceptance of that belief and then running with it themselves. And that's kind of, I always say I'm a springboard for other people, because they have to, once they get in the pool, they have to swim. But you have to be coachable, and you have to accept and believe and then release the stories from the naysayers, because everybody has them.
And you almost always have to leave your comfort zone and get out of fear and take a leap, a risk of some sort. It just doesn't happen without that. You have to just realize that taking the leap, maybe take a small leap the first couple times, but what it does is it builds your faith, because you start realizing, what was I so afraid of? This is great. And then it gets you to take more and more and more leaps.
You're so right about that comfort zone and taking those small steps, like climbing a ladder. My good friend Lynn always says the worst thing you can do is coast, because the only way to coast is downward. And that is really the mark of staying out of that comfort zone. We never arrive. We are always growing. So you have to constantly get better, get better. I look at the best athletes. Tom Brady would say, after winning the Super Bowl at a press conference, he would start telling you what he has to do better. He doesn't say, well, I just figured it all out because I won a Super Bowl. No, good athletes, good business people, they're always growing. They want to grow into each phase of their life. It's no different for us, especially as women. We never arrive. We are always growing. And the ones that continue to succeed for the long run, they know that already. And they're always looking for the next thing.
Right. You die if you stay stagnant.
Yeah, you coast downward.
Yeah, it's totally true. It's like, even when you have an injury, you can either sit there and stay stuck,
right?
Sink down even further, or you can start taking messy action, getting back up and moving forward until finally you're better.
Yeah, you know that. You could have given up so many times. You came back better.
See, that's God, though. He restores us, I think. And when we put our faith in him, and he's created these amazing bodies that heal. And when you give them rest and what they need and good nutrition, and don't overdo your fitness, that would be something I would also say, is there is a line that you want not to cross, because overtraining, overdoing, it still boils all back down to worth. So if you are overdoing all those things, examine, why are you doing them? Is there somebody's approval you're seeking, somebody's validation you're wanting? Are you not feeling enough? And work on those things, because you don't need to tie yourself to a piece of fitness equipment all day.
It's harder. You're absolutely right. It's more challenging now because of social media, because you get on social media and you see craziness and the workout of the week, and oh my gosh. So I think in the old days before social media, it was a lot of the things that you've described. It still is what you've described, but then put on social media on top of that, and women just don't know what the heck to do, because there's so many myths about what they should do.
Oh my gosh, so many.
Right. So it's been 10x or 3-dimensional now because of social media. So I think really making sure that you have the voice of reason in your head. If something looks or seems extreme, it's not good for you. And always kind of strive for something that is lifestyle driven. I always say your nutrition should be what your family eats. If you're eating something differently than your family, then it's a diet. but your nutrition, you shouldn't have to cook separately for your family. I mean, maybe when you're a week or two out from a show, your portions obviously are different, but there's nothing funky about getting into really great shape, no matter what you want to do. It should be joyful. So there's extremes in everything we do these days. And a lot of that is 10x'd by our visuals that we see all over social platforms.
And again, it can all tie back to, like, if we're doing all of these things, why are we doing it? Because that's the other thing. It isn't just to win a show. It's knowing, why are you doing what you're doing? What are you hoping to gain from it? What are you wanting to get out of it? And what does that tie back to? And when you can address all of those things, I think you come out on top, because sometimes it can be what you're seeking isn't what you're going to gain from what you're doing.
All the time. When people want to do a show to show their boyfriend, show their husband, when they want to do this to prove it to something, those things never work out. They really don't, which is why we spend a lot of time asking, why do you want to fill in the blank? What is your goal? Why do you want to build a business? Why do you want to build a brand? Why do you need to lose 20 pounds? I actually just did a reel on that I'm going to be releasing this week. It's peeling the onion of why someone really wants to do what they do. The worst thing you can come in to me from a fitness perspective and say is, I want to win. I want to win that show. And now you're being illogical, because it's judged. It's not a marathon where there's a finish line. Who the heck knows what's going to happen to you? It's being judged. So I always say, you're setting yourself up for failure. Sure, you could win, but I want you to go in at your best, and I want you to hope for the best. And I want you to be prepared as if you are the best. But you're absolutely right. People do have, they place these unnecessary pressures on themselves, but you say, why? Like, why is it like that? And it always goes back to something in our past where someone told us we weren't good enough for something. It was, and we can say this about everything. I remember the guidance counselor in my high school said, I don't think you're going to get into Boston College. I mean, your grades are great. You've got everything, but it's really hard. Well, I made darn sure that I got into Boston College, and here I am 15 million years later, and I'm still talking about it, because I wasn't going to let him deter me from my goal. And sadly, the other part of that is people hold on to that. So there's something in your past that drives you either from a positive channel or a negative. Our childhood is made up of all of these things imprinted upon us that we bring with us like baggage to adulthood.
It's
And
crazy, but
yeah,
it's so true. When I did the speaker salon with Trisha Brook in New York City this summer, what speech I thought I was going to give and what I ended up giving were so different, because what I would have thought I would have been talking about wasn't what I like: domestic violence, overcoming, living and that. It wasn't that at all. It all stemmed back to childhood, and it stemmed back to having, never getting the approval of a very close family member. And that was why it was so important to me. I think I was still seeking that approval by accolades and achievements. And when I realized that, and that might not come from that person, that you have to give it to yourself.
right.
And that is so much more powerful than putting our power in other people's hands to validate and approve us, and knocking ourselves out, killing ourselves for something that may never happen, that you should already have, right?
You're so right. And I would say 90% of the women that I worked with who had challenges like that had that type of upbringing. Not everybody, but people who had this identity crisis. It was they didn't get the recognition, or they didn't get the love they felt they needed. There was disruption in their childhood. I honestly think that's why I started calling myself Mama Savage because I was the
Oh my
mom that
gosh,
their
you're hitting the
mom
nail on the
couldn't
head.
be. And I,
Mm,
not a knock on people's mothers. I don't mean that at all, because most people have beautiful moms, but they didn't have that mothering that I had. And I remember, I believe it was Lou Zwick from Fitness America who said that. He's like, "You're like Mama Sat, like you're like everyone's mother," and
I love that.
it turned into that. And I always used to say to my mom and my dad, "Thank you for loving me and making me feel like I could do anything," because I have found in this day and age that parents did try hard. So it wasn't these bad parents, it was just that whatever was going on, their kids didn't feel that acceptance. And I think that's why I probably overdo it with my kids. And I'm constantly telling them how much I love them because that's what my parents did. But sadly, and this doesn't always just apply to parents, this could be
Mhm.
just like I said earlier, this could be a relationship, a teacher, but there's always something that happens to us, especially as women, where it really comes to our adulthood, where someone said we weren't pretty or someone said we weren't this. It sticks with us. And I'm not sure why, but we can channel it for good and let it fuel us to get to that next level.
Man, it's so true. And if you didn't have the mothering, like this is something you brought out just now that I was thinking earlier about you being called Mama Savage, that a lot of us didn't have nurturing or mothering and somebody in our corner cheering us on. That could be in your childhood, it could be in your relationships.
Right.
And everybody needs somebody supporting them, or at least supporting yourself. But when you haven't received that support, you might not recognize you should be having it, like in your
Right.
relationships.
Really good point.
And so,
Really good point.
right. And so I think growing up, my mom had manic depression, which they call it bipolar, uh, but it was somewhat manic. And so she was dealing with all of that. So there wasn't really, because she had all that to deal with, I didn't get the emotional support and the loving, nurturing, kind of mothering that I received from you. I received from Trisha Brook when I was at the speaker salon. I still remember her. And that's why it's so important to have someone that pours belief into you, to hire a coach like Cathy to help with that. Because if you didn't receive it, you may not even understand that you need it or that you should have it. And when Trisha looked me in the eyes and she told me and grabbed my arms and my hands and said, "You're amazing."
Right. You needed that. You needed that affirmation. You needed that. And she knew. She knew you needed it. You made a good point about your mom. When I think back about the generations before us all, it wasn't bad parenting a lot. It was dealing with parenthood. We're different now. And
Yeah.
my mom was not the norm. Most women wore aprons. I never saw my mother wear an apron in her life. And back then, women were kind of, gosh, like to even think of like raising kids and doing this and cooking and cleaning and doing all these things. It's no wonder why they weren't there for us, because they were just living a life of servitude, and not in a good way. My mom broke the ceiling. I mean, she was going to college when women didn't go to college. They just got married. She's two master's degrees, graduated a year early. She wasn't the normal mom. And I know that. And even women who had moms more, the moms grew up later than my mom, because my mom has passed away, obviously, but still women were always just trying to find themselves in the role. And then they started working, more women started working, outside the home, but then they still had to take care of the kids and cook the dinner, which I never understood. So wait, you're cooking and you're working the same? My mom would cook a lot, but she wasn't this big cook. And we were kind of all helping out when my mom started. My mom was a teacher, so she was home in time, but my dad did stuff around the house. They were very equal. But women had such a weird identity. They still do in many situations. When people say to
Mhm.
me, I have to ask my husband to continue it, like, it's weird for me. I would
Mhm.
always say, what do you have to ask your husband? It's odd. I don't understand why you would have to ask for permission to do anything. I don't understand it. And that's me, because bringing up the way I was brought up, rather, it was different. But these things all play into our roles as women. It's probably why I love Barbie, the movie Barbie, so much, because of the lessons. And it was so spot on with some things that were very, very intelligent. An
Mhm.
intelligent way of looking at the role of women. Now, of course, it was a Barbie movie, so there was a lot of silliness in it, but there were a lot of real big truths to it. And I appreciate that. I really did. So I think that a lot of times people need that mentor, that belief mentor, not because they had a bad mom, but because their mom went through a lot, or they just didn't see it. They didn't see
Mm.
what they were supposed to do. I see
Yeah.
that a lot. But,
Yeah. I
she's
wouldn't say I had a bad mom. I just think that
right.
she struggled,
She did the best
and
she could.
she
Right.
did. And she was also in that era of submitting to the husband the way the church kind of taught it, and
Right.
asking permission.
Yeah.
And she
Yeah.
rebelled a little bit. She
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
one day she said damn at the table, and we all took notice because she never said curse words,
Right.
and went to a wine tasting, which we didn't have alcohol ever in our home. So that was big when she said damn at the table, went to a wine tasting, and then went to a different church than my father.
Oh,
We
yeah.
all were taking notice, and we're
Oh, my
like, what's
gosh.
going on with mom? But
Yeah.
uh, maybe it was time.
Good for her. I mean, I think more women are stepping into that power. I think more so now, which is always a good thing. But my dad was the same way, but my dad didn't have love. My dad was basically an orphan. So I think that what you've described nowadays, women can kind of sit in that victimhood of saying, well, my parents weren't as great as yours, therefore I can't
Right,
do this.
right.
So I've heard that a lot. Well, Cathy, no wonder why you're successful. Your parents believed in you. No, my father had nothing, and he decided to be the change. And he created that love bubble for our family.
You
And
can.
I've always said to people, if you didn't grow up with loving parents, then you're going to be that person that makes the generational switch. You're going to be
Yes.
that person. So you're never stuck with a situation, whether you have the love. For me, I'm blessed to have had it. And now my goal is to serve that way, is to be that person for someone else that didn't have what I have. And all the lessons that I give, 90% of them are from my parents, because they were my teachers. So that's really how people can kind of get over that victimhood and
Mhm.
get in the front row, is to just stop hearing the story. Well,
Mhm.
no one believed in
Right,
me.
right.
So it kind of, everything that you asked from the beginning to now, it all kind of is the same story of releasing what does not serve you and
Mhm.
understanding that you are magnificent. You're not enough. You're magnificent. Enough is just mediocre. You're more than enough. You are magnificent. And you can make those changes. And surrounding yourselves with people like Linda is really sometimes the first step. And really watching the women, the wonderful women, there's so many examples out there of women of excellence who will help guide you in a way where you believe in yourself again. And that's what I want for most women, for every woman, to just believe in themselves. And that's where we start.
I love that so much, because that was my next question. What do you want every woman to know? It's like you're reading my mind today. But what you said is so key, is that we can be the change. And also, your wounds can heal, because when she said that to me 3 times, looking me in the eyes before I went on to talk, that was healing. And that talk was healing. I feel like all my wounds healed.
Mhm.
And so, like, giving yourself, if you have a mother wound or a father wound, being that mother, like, to yourself,
Mhm.
doing what you would have wanted your mother to do or your father to do for yourself is
Yeah.
very healing. But also having that mentor that is speaking belief into you, like Cathy does on the regular, uh, it is life changing. And it's definitely been life changing for me, Cathy.
Oh, well, you're an amazing person, Linda. You are a lighthouse for so many people. I don't know if you realize that, how many lives you've changed every day, from your gym to your books to everything. And what I find so special and unique about you is that you truly are a go-giver. You are someone that gives and gives and gives because you want the best for people. So I appreciate everything you've said, but I can say that right back to you, that you really do love people. You want the best for them. And I think that is your legacy, that you have this special, unique heart that we need more of in the world. And that's why you're my friend. That's why I love you.
Oh, I love you. And if you guys aren't crying yet, that probably did it for you. That was so wonderful.
I mean
Thank
it.
you so much. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate everything, like, that I've watched you not just do for me, but do for other women. And also the role model that you have set, like being this role model for other women in business to realize that they can do it their own way. Like, I bring femininity to my business. I don't run it like a man would run it. I run it like I would run it, like a woman would run it. And there's strength in that. And watching you go from building all these $1 million businesses and doing it from home makes every woman out there realize it's possible.
Thank you. It is possible. It really is. You can have everything that you want. You just have to work hard and you have to believe in yourself.
Oh, so perfect. Such a perfect ending to this great podcast with you today. Now, where can everybody find out about your coaching, branding, and all of that, and get a hold of you on social media?
Well, thank you, Linda. You've asked good questions too. I think it's because we know each other so well. This was like, I love conversational podcasts. Um, so Instagram is Cathy Savage Official, and my website is cathysavage.com. And I think those are probably the best ways to find me. Um, and if you have any questions, you can always reach out. But I know Linda, I just appreciate everything that Linda does for you, the listener, and what she provides for you. You have really great guests, Linda, by the way.
Oh, thank
Really do.
you.
Really great guests.
Thank you.
Um, and
It's
and I
a
can say
treat for me.
and I can say, as her little hype woman, is watch out for 2024, because you're going to see Linda in so many different ways. She is just starting this new era, and there's going to be endless possibilities for her coming her way, which is great for your listeners, your clients, all of it. So I can't wait to just shine that light on you a little brighter in 2024.
Oh, thank you so much, and so much love. And everybody, make sure you get what she's laying down today. Go find her online. It's worth it. Every time I've invested in myself with Cathy, it has always paid dividends. So, as always, you guys, keep on keeping on. Bye, everyone.